It's week 2 of our digital storytelling end of year adventure. If you did miss the episode last week, make sure you go back and check it out because you can still jump in, and by the end of the year, your students could have a polished, personal, multimedia project ready to share with the world. So far, we've introduced the project, we've built in some context and inspiration for students by inviting them to watch videos and share what they think makes those videos good. Then we brainstormed what they might create and how it can connect to course content. Before going into your next lesson, I'd encourage you to think through what your students have submitted or shared in terms of their ideas and tailor your project prompt and requirements so that you incorporate their ideas while staying aligned to the learning targets you want to assess at the end of the year. Actually, let's pause right here. Before we jump into lesson planning for this week, I want to check in on your rubric. The way I see it, a digital storytelling project can be assessed in 3 main ways. You can assess for hard skills and content knowledge. You can assess for what I like to call 21st century skills like creativity, design, collaboration, or you can do a mix of the two. It's important that you communicate to students how you'll be assessing these projects, so take the time to think about what you need to assess before the end of the year. If there are certain skills like evidence or historical thinking or specific concepts or vocabulary that you want students to demonstrate mastery of, or if you're an ELA and you want to take this opportunity to assess speaking and listening skills, or treat it as a research project. Because there are so many options, we won't get into that level of planning here, but I'd recommend identifying the skills and starting with a clear rubric that fits your style and gradebook parameters, and then being really careful about the additional mini lessons that you build in over the next few weeks. If you want to assess research skills, what do you have left to teach students about doing research? If you want to assess content knowledge or disciplinary skills, what will students be learning and practicing over the next few weeks outside of this project or in addition to that is going to teach them concepts and vocabulary that they can demonstrate in their projects? Okay, now for the next lessons. This week, we're talking research and we're talking planning. Start off with a large group discussion. We're nearing the end of the year. Ask your students, when have we done research this year? What about in your other classes? What does research look like? What can it look like? Why is research important? You're trying to get them to think about research as a content creator and a storyteller, so it's going to be important that you guide this conversation away from kind of standard answers about research projects or what I would call reports in school and into more authentic dialogue about the value of learning more about a topic, seeking diverse perspectives, and verifying credible sources for information. Once you've gotten everyone thinking, I recommend choosing a sample prompt or story idea so that you can model the research process with them, or at least some initial planning, because that's what your student's next step is going to be. Let's do one here together. Say I'm in English class and we've decided that our end of year projects are gonna be a mini documentaries that are essentially book reports about our independent reading novels that we've been reading throughout the semester. I like this prompt because it's totally student-centered. It's really up to them to have a topic and choose a topic, and they really have to demonstrate that they can identify, for example, theme, genre, purpose, style, and other elements that they'll bring in to create a video that story tells about their book of choice. Anyway, so we're in large group and I'm gonna model my research project. I have my book. I'm gonna start by maybe learning more about the author. I'm gonna investigate the genre. I'm gonna look into the time period when the book was published, because I wanna know about where my author's from. I wanna know what inspired them to write, who they write for. I wanna know if there's any relevant historical context or cultural information that might impact my understanding of what's going on in the book. Again, the goal here would be to get students thinking about research as an investigative process that will inform and inspire the content they include in their eventual film. In my experience, if you provide them with a graphic organizer or some sort of note taker that requires them to look at their topic from multiple different perspectives and take good notes, it'll set them up for success for their story later on, and it'll take up a full class period of work. So budget for about 10 to 15 minutes on the discussion at the top and your modeling, and then send them off to do their research. After they've done their initial research and checked in with you, they can start working on creating a skeleton or some sort of outline for their eventual video. This might be another class period, or it might be something you need to send home and ask them to do for homework. If you do it in class, you can time them and ask them to work for 20 or 30 minutes before pairing up and trying out peer review and giving each other feedback. And then you can give them initial time to firm up their plans as they head into production. Here's what you're looking for from them. They should have a clear topic and a purpose for their content, not just a response to the prompt. They should be able to demonstrate that they've spent time thinking critically about what they're supposed to do, and they've made it their own. To use our earlier example, my documentary, it's not gonna be a book report summarizing the book. Rather, I'd be telling a story about maybe the importance of a specific character archetype, or the impact the book had on the publishing industry. Your students need to have a clear argument, even if they don't see their final product as argumentative. In our linked resources for this week, we have some recommendations for specific kinds of planning, organizers, and other materials that you can use for journalism or documentary content, and we have general graphic organizers that I've created for you to help with this research day and the planning day that I talked through in this episode. If you have questions or need a little more help making this happen in your classroom, don't hesitate to reach out, and make sure you're subscribed so that you get notified about next week's episode when your students will start producing.